Okay, so when this whole thing is completely dry, then we can start to cover this up with white gesso. I think you can also use white acrylic paint mixed with some white glue, so that glue that dries transparent, or it also can glue white, dry white, because yeah, everything will be covered up white. As you can see, you can check this here if it's really sturdy by moving it a little bit, and you can see, yeah, that's okay like this. If it moves a little bit, that's not so important, because when we attach the gesso, then that will become such hard that this later on will be solved, this little problem. Make sure that you cover your surface with something, some kind of thing that you yeah, don't paint your table, because I don't want to have this cover yellow in the end, but I want to cover it up, the whole thing, so also the backside and the spine, because I want to give it, whoo, okay, that never happened before, sorry. Yeah, when you shake your gesso, obviously everything comes out when you don't want it, but that's not too bad. I want to have the cover later on in another color, so yeah, that I paint this with this white stuff here, and I do this in several layers, because the first thing is it dries quickly when you make it in different thin layers. And yeah, I think it becomes a little bit more sturdier. I don't know why, when you make it in several layers. As I said, I don't know exactly why, but when you have the gesso too thick in some areas, it dries not so nice, and it looks not such nice in the end than when you are a little bit more patient and do it in several steps. Because of that, yeah, I don't care about that. This yellow is not covered up with the first layer, and I still can see it here, because when I add more layers, then it will be covered up completely. It may be that when you have a very expensive and very good white gesso, that this can cover up it in the first step, but this is a gesso from this action store that we have in Germany, and I think you know it in Belgium and in the Netherlands. I think also there's this store, and they sell it for very less money, and sometimes you need a little bit more, but the quality is okay for that price, I think. But yeah, when you have a better gesso, perhaps you need only one layer. But I would recommend to check if, when you have a gesso that covers this up with one layer, that you have enough sturdiness of this whole thing, and that, yeah, everything is in place there where you want it. Because several layers, of course, are thicker when they are dry, and it gives it more stability, or how is that called, than when you have only one layer. So yeah, that makes sense, I think. And I try to get some more gesso into these little areas here under the clothes and here under the back, to get another point where the cover is touching the doll. Because when this dries, then yeah, you have a very nice thing here around, something like a frame, or yeah, it's not visible as a frame, but I don't know how to call that. When you do your shading later, you have it much more easy to go around here. When you have a little, yeah, something like a worm around here, how shall I call that? And I try to make sure that I don't have too much visible brush strokes. So I think you can't see that in my camera, but when you look closer, then when you have a very rough brush, then sometimes you can see the single brush strokes on the surface of the gesso, and I don't like that. So I try to get in different directions here with my brush to make sure that this can't happen. The hair is a little bit tricky because of these little fibers here. I don't care about if there are several things that are coming out here. You can cut them with your scissors later if you don't like that, or if you can't press them down, that would be no problem. And as you can see, I put the gesso directly to my book cover here, because then I can, yeah, move it around and bring it there where I want it. And I think you could also use something like a stencil or some things that make a structure to the areas that are around your doll. I think that would be a nice thing too. I would recommend to do that in the second step. So when you have your first layer and have covered up all the things with your white gesso, then let this dry, and then you can put a stencil or something like that to the surface, and you can also use some structure paste here in the background or something like that. Yeah, because when you do it in the first step, of course, you would see some of the original color of the book. If you like the cover, of course, you can do that as well. This charging thing here is breaking my nerves. Sorry. Yeah. When I come to the face, so let me just try to show you that a little bit more detailed. I have to lift it up, sorry. When you come to the face and you want to paint the face, then the first thing is that you try to get every single little slot here painted. And I do this in several steps, as I said. As you can see, that don't covers up the whole thing. And I let this dry, and then I go over it with a second layer. And then the second thing that you have to make sure is that you don't have the fibers of the hair in the face. So if there is something, go around with your brush and bring it out of the face, so that you don't have any problems that this sticks to your piece and you can't get it away later. Yeah, and sometimes when the hair is like this, it also can help to use your fingers to bring this gesso to the right place, because you have more control over it when you do it with your fingers. And I just want to have this a little bit more flat, because I think it's a little bit too much, so you have the chance to press it a little bit down and bring it into shape. Because the first layer with the Mod Podge is not such strong as this layer would be with a gesso. And I also try, when I attach this, that I get some of those original clothing structures out here. So this lace here, I don't want to cover it up too much. Also this lace here on the here on this t-shirt frame, and yeah, so that I get a little bit more interest to this whole thing. Just have to move this around, I can't see anything. And when I come to the back of the head, I make sure that I have a little thicker layer of this gesso behind, so that if the head is not completely glued down, the gesso can help to solve this problem and to bring this completely to the cover. And I press the gesso between the cover and the hair and the head, so that I can make sure that there is no space between it. You have to do that a little bit carefully, because you don't want to have too much of the gesso there. And because of that, I make it like this and bring it a little bit flatter. You can also do it like this, then you have the structure of your paintbrush on the cover. That looks also really nice in the end when you put some paint on it. Yeah, so I think for the first thing I will let it dry like it is, and I will do this with all the others too, so the other both that we prepared. I will also cover them with gesso in the same way, so that you don't have to watch until Christmas. I will do that out of camera and show you the details and the results later. One thing, when the cloth, so this t-shirt is not such fitting to the doll, so it's a little bit too big here, I press some gesso under the t-shirt so that later on, when this is dry, the t-shirt will be glued to the body, so that there can happen nothing when you have your journal in use and yeah, you close it and open it, then nothing will happen. When you put it into a bag or something like that, then it can't be destroyed when it's all glued together there. Okay, so when the first layer of gesso has dried, it looks something weird like this. As you can see, it has not covered up all the things here. When I painted the gesso in the first layer, of course there are some pieces, especially in the areas of the hair, that are not touched with gesso, but that's not the problem. You can do that with the second layer. I prefer, as I said, to make some more layers, but thinner layers, so that everything dries a little bit quicker. Sometimes it happens, especially in the areas of the hair, as you can see here perhaps, that it lasts very long, that this gesso gets really dry and sturdy. As you can see here, it's not dried even if I left it overnight. So the last part of the video I recorded yesterday, and then I wait a whole night, and you can see it's not completely dry. Also here at the outside of this hair, it needs a little bit more time to dry, but it's very important that you let your layers dry completely before you add the next layer, because on all the places where you have this plastic things under your gesso, it can happen that when you put the next layer on top, when the first layer is not really dry, that you remove the first layer with the second layer. So when you take your paintbrush and you paint the second layer of gesso over it, then there will be some of those little things that come off, and then that will not stick on the plastic of the face, for example. On the clothes, it's not such problem, but especially on the arms and in the face, it can be a little bit a problem. So please let this dry really, really well. I prepared one of my things here with the second layer, and as you can see, this was dry, and it dried a little bit more faster than the other one. I don't know why, but yeah, perhaps because this doll is a little bit smaller and the first layer was not such thick. So I added the second layer, and as you can see now, most of this thing is completely white. You will have some problems when you have a clothing like this here. You can see this original stripes of this t-shirt here, even if you paint a second layer. I will decide if I leave it like this and put my color on top later, or if I paint a third layer of gesso. I don't know until now, because I want this to be completely dry before I decide that. That's a point for me. That's also very important. I try to do these things step by step. So in the same way as I am explaining it here to you, I do it in reality, because some things you can see not when this whole thing is wet, and when it's dry it looks such different, and you have perhaps some different ideas what you can do with it, and I hate planning such things from the very beginning. So I believe that these results will get totally different than my very first piece, but I think that's a process, and that's a normal process that you go through when you do such things like this. And I think also what I found out in the meantime is that the plastic of the face is not the same, the surface is not the same on every doll. So this one here covered up much better with the first layer, even if here's the second layer on top. But when you compare this, you can see that the gesso on this original Barbie doll is, some things of the face are shining through there. I think the face was a little bit darker as well as this from the smaller doll, but you have to check this when you do it. So I can't give a recipe on how exactly to do this, because the gesso may be a little bit different from brand to brand, and the dolls may be a little bit different. So please be a little bit flexible and try this by your own and decide what you can do when you see what happens. The next thing I will do is I will cover this up here with a second layer, and also my little mermaid thing here that in the meantime looks like this. So this has on some parts that were dry, it has a second layer already, so I made this out of camera, and I can't touch it here because it's not really dry, but when it's dry and you touch it, you can feel if you need another layer or not. So of course you can say, okay, this little purple, red and pink things here, I like that. I don't want to have it completely white, or I like the this look of the face. Then you can leave it like this, but you have to make sure that you have as many layers as you need, that this whole thing gets sturdy. Because when you have your journal in it and you have sewn your signatures in, you don't want this to be destroyed when you open your book. When you see this here and you touch it, sorry, let me focus this. When you touch it very carefully, you can see that this is not as sturdy as we want it. So if you like this red, okay, but then you have to put the red color on later, because we need a second layer of gesso here the lace is very sturdy. You can, yeah, here it is some gesso missing, but on this side here I can leave it like it is to have these little holes here and the pattern of the lace, to leave this and don't cover it up with gesso because this is sturdy enough. But here, when I touch it, I can feel that I can press it down, and that would not be such good when you would like to make a whole journal out of it and you want to have it sturdy. And then you know that you need a new layer of gesso. And yeah, so let's do that, and then we will let it dry again. And as I said, in this step, I also add a thin layer of gesso. I try to get this gesso in all these little spaces here, especially when you want to color it in another color. So when you don't want to have it red or pink like it is here in the end, then please make sure that your gesso covers up all these things, because it's very yeah it's yeah, a little bit a problem, because when you don't get your gesso everywhere where you want it, and you paint for example this thing later in a green or a blue or something like that, so a color that don't has red elements, then it can happen that you find a little space where you have this red, and you can't cover that up with your color. So when you take acrylic paint, for example, and you see, oh, a little space here is red, and I don't want it to have it red, then you can't cover it up with your color that you want to use for this piece, because it will be shown as a piece that is not belonging there. So hopefully you know what I mean. That happened to me with this first piece, that I had some pink things here inside, and I was not able to cover that up later, because when I put gesso on it and then let it dry and then put my acrylic paint, that will be visible for the rest of the life of this book, because yeah, because of the different layers of this stuff, you will always see that. And for this problem, I would recommend to do this step very exactly and very carefully, so that you yeah, don't have these problems in the end. Perhaps you know these techniques that the mixed media experts do, that they, especially in this steampunk themed journals and mixed media pieces, they also do this technique that I'm doing here, and they cover up the whole thing with one color. In this special scene with the steampunk stuff, mostly they use black color to cover everything up, and then they work with gold or some copper paint or something like that, and they put little elements like we have this doll here, and then they cover the whole thing up. And that's a thing, yeah, it's nearly the same here, but only the difference is that we do it with a white gesso, because the colors we will put on later will be a little bit more bright. And yeah, of course you can try this to cover it up with a black gesso, that would also be possible, but then of course you have another effect. You have to choose your paints that you put on later in a different way, because I think yeah, that's what I am planning to use for the painting itself. It will work better on white gesso. So please make sure that you know how your colors that you would like to use and the kind of the paint, how it would react. So when you have paint, or yeah, some sprays or something like that that you would like to use for the coloring that work better on black gesso, then of course you can also cover this whole thing up with black gesso. That would be no problem. And yeah, I think when you do this, you have an imagination of what you will put on top. And I think you have used your colors before on another piece, and you know what you are doing with your colors normally. So you will know if they would work better on white or on black surface. So please, yeah, choose that kind of gesso that you think would work the best with your colors. And the first layer of this one here in the face, I made a little bit, yeah, crumbly, and I touched the face with my paintbrush like this. The second layer, I tried to get a little bit more controlled on it. I do this because it's all about these layers. I need to have this structure of the face in the end, and it looks more realistic when you have not everything covered in this direction with your paintbrush or in this direction, but when you have a little bit more structure. I think that looks more realistic, and you don't have the problem that you see your brush strokes on the face. It's a very yeah, glossy and very straight surface. I don't know, I think the right word, but you will see the brush strokes when you do it only in one direction, and that's a little bit a problem. But from layer to layer, I think you will get a nice result when you touch it like this and then make brush strokes in this direction and in this direction. You can, yeah, play around a little bit until the gesso is not dry. And also with this hair, it's a little bit tricky because the gesso will go completely into this structure of the hair. So I touch it here only a little bit with my paintbrush to get it into this little spaces here. But also I don't want to lose the structure of the hair, because when you put your paint later there, then the hair is one of the parts where this effect that we will get here is shown in a very extreme way. And the effect with color on this structure here is very extreme. And I don't want to have a flat surface here, of course, on my hair, but I don't want to have the original hair shown through here. And that's a little bit tricky, because, as I said, the gesso will go into these little spaces here. Hopefully you can see what I mean. Here, for example, I have an area where I see the original hair, and here, this little thing here, when I go with my paintbrush in here, you see that the gesso goes into there, and it's a little bit tricky to get it covered up. I recognize that the hair of an original Barbie doll is kind of strange, because when you cover this up with gesso and you let it dry, then sometimes it gets a little bit yellow. So I think you can't see that in my camera, but you will see that when you try it with your own doll. So make sure that, especially where the hair is here flat on the cover, here it's a little bit, don't know why, it's a little bit white, yellow, and I want to have it white. So you have to go over it several times with thin layers of gesso to get it really white. Because I think when you put your other colors over it, with the time, this yellow will come through. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that is something, yeah, another kind of color where the doll hair is colored with. or some things that come out of this hair, or if it is the hair itself, I don't know, but that's really a thing that I don't want to have here, because I'm afraid that when I put my color over it, that the colors will change her color, so that they will not stay the same because of this yellow touch there. Of course, when you paint your doll in a yellow tone, then that would not be such problem, because it would not be such visible. But all the colors that are not in the yellow family would be perhaps a little bit of a problem when this comes through. And I don't know if this is the problem with every doll on this earth, but please check that out when you glue it and you see the first layer in a dried stadium. Then you can see if this happens with the hair of your doll or not. And sometimes it's really tricky to get all these little things here covered up because of this little tiny slots here. But I think it's worth it to do it very exactly and very carefully, with a little bit patience. That's not my strength, to be patient with these things. And a good idea also is to turn your piece around a little bit from time to time, so that you can see the spaces from another angle, because for example from here I can't see here that here is much of this red visible. And yeah, it can happen that you think, okay, I'm ready, everything is white, and then you turn it around and you think, okay, there's a little space that's not covered up. So turn it around a little bit to see where you need more white gesso. Yeah, and it seems to be very flexible, even if we have a second layer now here. But I think that's normal with this gesso thing. It gets really sturdy when it is dry, and it takes a time, but yeah, then I think this will be great. And of course, when you want to have, for example, here this little lace here on the top of this thing, when you want to have it 3D and dimensional, then you have to do that with your gesso and bring it in the form that you want to have it, because when it is dry, of course, then it is sturdy and you can't move it. So I try to get this in the position I want to have it, and then I leave it like it is and wait until it is dry. So let me show you that in the detail, that you can see what I mean. It's a little bit tricky here with this camera. So I want this here to be a little bit outside of this thing. So because I think that, that looks nice. And I also want to have this lace here shown a little bit. So there's little waves here on the top. So I go around here, take a little bit gesso away where it is too much, and then I press it with my brush in the position I want to have it. And when I think, okay, that's nice, then I leave it and I let it dry like it is. And even if here is not enough gesso, I can see, okay, there are some areas where I need gesso. I let it dry like it is now, and then I prefer to add another layer and cover up these little spaces. But then this is sturdy and you can touch it with your paintbrush without destroying it. The same with this dress here on the arms. As you can see, I made them in this original planned way, like I think the designer of this dress planned it, so that you have these holes here that you of course can cover up with white gesso too, so that when you look from here, that it's not such ugly as it is now. But from here you can see this dimension of this dress. And I think that's a really cool thing, because you can put your finger in here and press it a little bit and then carefully paint it. And in the end, can you hear that? It's really sturdy. So I need another layer here and from this, so I can't press too much. But in the end, that will be really, really sturdy and durable. Yeah, okay, so that was part 1 of this really weird tutorial. Hopefully I answered every question that you asked me due my social media channels. And hopefully that was a little bit helpful. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment. I will try to answer that. Yeah, even if I think I explained that really detailed, but sometimes there are things I'm not thinking about while I do this tutorial. Yeah, hopefully it was not too weird and not too confusing. And what I will do next is I will add as many layers as I need to cover this up, this whole thing, that I have everything white, that I have all these little tiny things here covered up, that everything is really, really white and no things from the original doll are showing through this gesso. And I will add as many layers as I need, that this is really sturdy. So when it's dry and I touch it, then it has a sound like this. And you can't press it down anymore, so that it is really, really sturdy. I will do that with all of the 3 pieces that I have here on my desk. And then you will find part 2 of this video where I color those things. And I will show you in detail how I made this with the first piece, yeah, on these examples here. And yeah, I will turn one of them into a vampire. I think that will be this one here. Yes, of course, it will be. Then there will be another video where this will become a mermaid and I color this mermaid. And I don't know until now if my plan can get reality to bring this into a little fairy thing, but you will find a 3rd video where I color this. Because I will, so the reason why I will do 3 more videos is because I want to use different kinds of colors. Because I thought, okay, Louise, when you do this really weird stuff, then you can perhaps try to show what happens when you use different kinds of colors. Because, yeah, I think this covering thing is a little bit boring and it's a little bit long lasting and you need much time to let it dry. So I thought when I color them all in the same way and with the same colors, that would be not so interesting. So I decided to use different things. I think for the mermaid, I will use brushes so that you have a little preview what I will do, because I think that can get a really, really cool effect because of this underwater things. Hopefully that will work with brushes. For this one here, I will use acrylic paints like I did it on the first piece. And I also will use this Marabu, how is this called? I think Maya Gold. That's a special kind of some glittery color that I will use on this piece, and we will do some splatter and things. And I don't know what will happen with this until now, when I should be honest, because I have to let this dry and look what comes to my mind. But yeah, that's the things that are the things that you can expect when you would like to watch the next videos. So if you don't want to miss anything, please subscribe to my channel, hit this little notification bell, then you will get informed when I upload the new videos, but I also will post them on my social medias, of course. I would also be very happy if you would like to follow me on Instagram or somewhere else, or if you would like to like my Facebook business page. I will link everything down below so that you can find it. And a thing that I also have to mention, perhaps as a little bonus for the people who watch this video until the end, yay, I have a mailing list. So it's called the HEINZLLETTER. So it's something like a newsletter where you get some new informations about the stuff that I'm working on. And you also get with nearly every new newsletter, some freebies that you can print out and use for your junk journals or other paper craft projects. So if you are interested in that, please check out the info box of this video. There is linked everything, and there is a link where you can sign up and get all those stuff for free. Yeah. Okay, so that's it. I have to cut this video now, and then I have to upload it, and I'm a little bit excited what you will think about it. And yeah, until the next time and until the second part of this things here, I wish you a very great time. Have lots of fun with your own craftings, and yeah, bye bye.